If you invest in dividend-paying stocks, reinvesting dividends until you reach financial freedom is the best thing you can do. In fact, it's extremely important if you want to maximize your returns. This is not a question. It's important because of compounding. If you don't reinvest the dividends, your long-term returns will be much, much lower. Reinvesting dividends means that I own a stock that pays dividends, and once I get the payment, I buy new shares from that money. So, since this compounding is extremely important, it might sound logical to use a dividend reinvestment plan. But let me tell you why I'm not using dividend reinvestment plans. So, first of all, what is a dividend reinvestment plan? It's a program that allows investors to automatically reinvest dividends into new shares of the same company that paid the dividend. In other words, if I own shares of Starbucks and I get dividends from them, a dividend reinvestment plan will automatically buy new shares of Starbucks from that money. Even though this sounds practical, I'm not using dividend reinvestment plans, and let me tell you why. I have an 8-step process of how I filter stocks I'm buying every month, and one of these steps is valuation. The price of the stocks is always moving up and down, so the valuation of the stock is also moving up and down. Sometimes a company is overvalued and sometimes it's undervalued. If I find a good company, I only buy them if the stock is undervalued. This is called the margin of safety, because even if I'm wrong about the future growth of the company, since I buy the stock really cheap, I can still make money because undervalued stocks usually go back to normal valuation levels. So many times I buy a stock and a few weeks or a few months later the price of the stock goes up. So the valuation of the stocks I own is always going up and down. But when the stock is not undervalued, I'm not buying it anymore. I'm holding it and receiving the dividends. For example, last year I bought Whirlpool when the price of the stock was $91. Now, just a few months later, the price of the stock is $230, which is a 150% capital gain. Now, the stock is not undervalued anymore. In fact, it is overvalued today, so I'm not buying more shares of Whirlpool. I hold it and get the dividends. So this is why it doesn't make sense to automatically reinvest dividends into the same company. Because if I would do that, if I would use dividend reinvestment plans, I would automatically buy the stock at a valuation that is too high when the stock is overvalued. And that would be raising my risk levels and it would be also lowering my returns. Instead of automatic reinvestment from the dividends I get from Whirlpool, I will buy the stock of another company that is undervalued at the time when I receive the dividends. Or I even hold the cash for a few weeks if I don't find any good stocks. If I only buy stocks that are undervalued, I minimize my risk and maximize my returns. However, if someone is a very passive investor and he buys an S&P 500 ETF, reinvesting the dividends into the same ETF every month is a perfect solution. Because when you buy an ETF, you are buying a market average, so valuation is not really relevant for you. But if you pick individual stocks and you want to buy them when they are cheap to minimize your risk and maximize your returns, then a dividend reinvestment plan doesn't make sense. It's much better to control where we put the money we get in the form of dividends.